welcome back again to the 5th edition of the Pondwater Dave Show. My name is Justin Davis, and I am your host here each and every week. And each and every week here on the Pondwater Dave Show, I'm joined, well, wouldn't you know it, Pondwater Dave is on this show. Pondwater, the man who counted Ric Flair's last match. How are you today, sir?
Pretty good. You said 5th edition. It made me think about Kenny Rogers, and I always smile when I think about Kenny Rogers.
I was thinking new edition. Come on.
Yeah, well, the 5th edition. Just checked in to see what condition my condition was in.
Oh, there we go.
I gave y'all some homework. You kids ain't never heard of that.
I've seen you in some bad condition. I don't know.
I'll tell you about bad conditions. We had Christmas. We had our first batch of Christmas last weekend, and the kids from my daughters came in from Texas, and my daughter Brittany got her first deer. She killed her a 7-point buck. It was real nice.
Awesome.
Only problem is she killed it with her car.
Oh,
5 miles from my house. So we spent a couple hours. We spent a couple hours on the side of the highway. And the bad part is that where she got off the road, there was a dead coyote in the ditch, and it smelled horrible. But I had a friend ask me, said, when I showed him a picture of the deer, he said, "I'm guessing she didn't get that in the woods." I said, "Well, is it actually back? She put it back in the woods."
Well, there we go. We got our Pondwater Dave wildlife story of the week. It seems like there's always some wildlife going on down there in Mississippi.
Yeah, the goose is a badass, but the deer in the battle of deer versus car wins. Well, I guess car wins.
The geese
Body Shop is the real winner.
The geese have moved north, haven't they? They're up out of there by now.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It's 80 degrees.
Well, or no, they're supposed to. No, yeah, they go south. Do they go south? Do they go north? I don't know where they're supposed to go.
I'm south. I mean, I don't know how much further they're going to go.
They go somewhere. All right.
I'm pretty south.
Straight from Kentucky.
Speaking of South.
Yeah, speaking of South, the pride of Kentucky and the first lady of the Arn Anderson fan club, Miss Amy Vaughn. What is going on over there this week in Kentucky?
Lots of rain, but I will say this. I have finished my Christmas shopping. How about y'all? Have y'all done? Or
I've got one more left. I'm almost done.
Awesome. Well, you know what? I don't know who this last gift is for, but if they're an Arn Anderson fan, you know what they would love?
No, gosh, I don't have any idea, Amy. Why don't you tell us?
They would love to be part of his graphic novel.
A graphic novel? Arn Anderson's got a graphic novel?
He does. And not only does he have a graphic novel coming up, there is a level that you can purchase. You can actually be in the novel. You will be drawn in the novel, be a part of history, for just for a small fee. And like, you just can't buy gratitude like that. You know what I'm saying? So Justin, I know this person you've got to buy for is an Arn Anderson fan. And I'm telling you right now, the perfect gift will be to do a level over on arncomic.com is where you can find all these different levels, and show that person that you really love them and get them the Talk to Arn level, which gives you the book, the shirt, the lithograph, plus a phone call from Arn Anderson. I mean, how could you not have a Merry Christmas knowing you are going to get to talk to the enforcer of the Four Horsemen, right?
There you go. So if you're a listener and you got a dad that's a fan of Arn Anderson, and that would be pretty cool to get a phone call and stuff as a Christmas gift for your dad or somebody like that.
Yes.
Hold on, time out. Why you got to go dad?
Well,
what are you trying to say?
Some of us are not 60. I'm just saying.
I feel low-key attacked.
Speaking of Christmas presents, I want to say thank you to Miss Amy Vaughn, who this came in the mail today for me. Those of you watching on video, it's just a little picture of our podcast logo. So thank you, Amy. I got that in the mail today.
Cool.
You're welcome. Well,
I didn't mean to spoiler alert on your present coming, Dave.
I was going to say, you should go check your mail, Dave. They said it would be here today. So,
I normally stop when I pull in and get my mail because the mailbox is about 800 feet from the house. And I'll normally stop and get out and get the mail, but I had to get home because the wrecker came to pick that car up. Yeah, my kids were stranded. They had to fly home.
Oh my gosh, poor things.
But I saw the wrecker was here, so I just came on up because I had to get him the key.
Well, I understand. Me and a deer collided, I guess it was last year, and I was 0 and that deer was 1. I'm assuming it was a deer. I've told people, I said it could have been Bigfoot for all I know, because it just out of nowhere, we kind of collided like this as I was going down the road. And thank God I did not have my window down, because I could have probably been, my eyes gouged out with some antlers, because I saw it in the corner of my eye. They were combining and doing all kinds of stuff. I should have known better, because I do live in the country. I should have been more aware.
Well, in fairness, you never hit a deer. A deer always hits you.
Well, that is exactly true, because it felt like I had been in a car wreck. Like it literally just, like I said, I was driving and it just wham. It took out my whole entire driver's side. It was crazy. So I feel for her. I feel for her.
My claim is one time on a referee trip with 2 other referees in the car with me, I just cracked open a tall boy and a deer, and I hit a deer, and I never dropped an ounce of that beer. That's my claim to fame.
I hit one time, and while my truck was in the shop with the rental car, I hit another one. I totaled the rental car. Because a Mazda MX-6 is no match for a deer.
No. Well, let's get into our first segment of each week, which is wrestling news, current wrestling news this week. And there was some major news this week, of course. William Regal, the great Lord Steven Regal, whatever name you want to give him, is apparently asked for his release from AEW and is on his way back over with his buddy Terrorizing from their WCW days. And so, yeah, what do you guys think about this? This is interesting.
Man, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised. I just don't think that. I think there's got to be. I mean, I read that Tony Khan said that he just wanted to go back and work with his kid, and that's how they played it up. But part of me thinks that maybe that brand of wrestling just wasn't his cup of tea. And if he's a teacher and he tries to make things better, and perhaps the stories of talent that works there doesn't think they need any advice. I mean, that could be. I don't know. I'm not there. But, I mean, I think it's interesting that he can go back and be a coach, but he can't appear as a character for a year.
Yeah. I mean, I think in the end, I think it's family oriented, right? He wants to go be where his son's at.
I didn't even know he had a son that was wrestling.
Yeah, I didn't either. Apparently, he must be in developmental or something.
Well, and 2, I think he would not have been let go if Triple H was still in charge. I mean, from NXT.
I think that's been the, everybody's like, man, I've had enough of Vince's crap. I'm out of here. And then who would have thought that Vince wouldn't be there?
Exactly.
And then you're like, oh man, I'm a Triple H guy. Can I have a do-over? And you can't blame Tony Khan for wanting to hold him to it,
WWE should make employees wear those shirts. I'm a Triple H guy. Pretty much at this point, they all are.
It's a very enjoyable product, though. But I can't imagine that everybody that wants to go back is going to go back and be featured.
Right.
Same problem.
And
then this time next year, everybody's talking about that Triple H don't know how to use them. So you can't win.
What do you think, Amy?
I hate to see him go, because he is an asset, I think, wherever he's going to be. And I think we all really enjoyed that NXT product when he was there and before it became 2.0. I mean, I think we all enjoyed the black and gold. Um, you know, I want there to be some kind of, you're right about Tony Khan should hold them because he gave them a contract, he hired them. But I don't know if you've listened to Jim Cornette. He was talking a little bit about how the attitudes in the locker room, like you were saying, the young, some of the people don't want advice. They don't want to be taught, or they don't think they need to be taught. And I'm sure if that is true, that atmosphere, it'd be really easy to say when Triple H came back and you had the, people who are like literally, basketball stars that sign um, a developmental contract, like literally have no knowledge about wrestling, wanting to come on board, like he would be more of an asset there than somewhere like AEW, where maybe they don't. Some of the young talent maybe are not as open to having critiques or education or advice or whatever. And again, that's just what we hear. Who knows what really goes on? But if you hear it enough, right? I mean, there has to start being some truth, at least you think.
I think this would be a situation over in WWE where if William Regal takes over as kind of the head coach, I guess. I think most people that he's talking to would know, like, he's right. He's the next source to Triple H. So if I pull him off, I'm going to piss Triple H off. So I think there's that level of it. Whereas in AEW, I think there was more gray lines with all that.
Right. Definitely. Because, I mean, he was an on-air talent, and you're not really for sure. I feel like in NXT, we knew he was like, quote, the general manager, but we also knew he probably was really a general manager of the NXT product and oversaw quite a bit. He wasn't doing that at AEW, as the buck stops with Tony Khan for everything. And so if you don't have that leverage, like you said, like what does it matter, I guess?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's not the only thing going on this week, although that was kind of shocking. I mean, you see it in sports sometimes where like an athlete will ask out of their contract early. And, I think Tony Khan deserves a lot of credit. And I don't do this very often on this show, but he deserves a lot of credit for the way he handled it, I believe. And I think people need to remember that too. Like, Tony could have been more of an a-hole in this spot if he wanted to be. And I think he handled it very graciously myself. But the other story, Sasha at Wrestle Kingdom. Dave, what's going on here?
I heard that Mercedes, however you pronounce her last name, I can't. It begins with a V. Sasha Banks, the artist formerly known as Sasha Banks, has filed for several trademarks that relate Mercedes Monet, M-O-N-E, with a, what do you call it? With
a thing.
With a thing
up
by the
accent mark or something.
Yeah. Anyway, she had several that she's been trying to trademark with her actual name. They say she's been working out in Mexico and California, and that there's a possibility that she'll be on the January 4th Wrestle Kingdom show against with the girl from Stardom that used to be in WWE, Kairi Sane.
Kerosene?
Yeah, kerosene. She's gonna burn it. She's gonna burn that bitch to the ground. Anyway, I don't know what her status of her WWE contract. The way I saw, I mean, she, her and Naomi walked out. I would think that would have froze her contract, and I don't. Or maybe she's being allowed by WWE to participate on that show.
You know what I wish out of all the gimmicks we got back in 94 and 5? I wish we would have got Diesel versus Kerosene. Now that would have been WrestleMania match. Right there. Diesel versus Kerosene.
Oh my goodness.
We could have printed the money, pal.
Oh. And
So
this
anyway.
and that joke right there is why we're number 245 on the Australian charts. We are down under.
Come on, our Australian
Like
friend.
kangaroos, I promise, koala bears, we like all that stuff. I'm for it.
Exactly.
And I go to Outback Steakhouse at least once a month. So
That'll do it. No.
all right.
What's your go-to at Outback?
Oh man, usually it's last time I went, I got the prime rib.
Yeah.
And it was pretty good. I get that loaded sweet tater, I'm getting that.
Yeah.
And then usually some French onion soup.
I love that French onion soup.
Oh, now that's what you dip that brown bread in. See?
Yeah.
These are the tricks at the Outback Steakhouse. If you ever need to learn any tricks at the Outback, give me and Pondwater a holler. We'll give it all to you. Holler if you hear me.
Holla!
To all my freaks and geeks out there. Anyways, today's show is about the AWA, not just us freaks and geeks. We're going to talk some AWA, some good old Vern Gagne, Minnesota territory. And Dave, what we're going to do first? We're going to do the show and tell, or we're going to talk about the AWA?
No, we'll do the show and tell. We'll finish up with the show and tell.
Okay, so our show and tell is going to focus on some AWA, right, Dave?
Well, spoiler alert, you're going to spoil everything today?
I didn't say what it was. I said it was going to focus on AWA, and that's why we're talking about this AWA review of Tales from the Territory.
Are we going to do the trivia first?
Oh,
when
yeah.
Do you want to do that?
We can do that right now. That's a good idea.
We could do that to kind of give a warm up, so to see what people, what you actually know about the AWA. We're
doing AWA. So Amy's been coming in. She came in last week with some Survivor Series trivia, which me and Dave, I think, ended up tying in, which was kind of boring.
Did we tie?
Hopefully we have somebody wins this one. We got some.
I could have swore I won.
Oh, maybe you did. You know what? I think you might.
In my mind, I won.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe he did because you kept second guessing yourself, Justin.
That's right. I think you're right.
I mean, even if it was a tie, you get a -1 because you missed a Bret Hart question.
That's true. And I got no end of hell about that from Eddie the Panther.
I bet.
So, yeah.
He told me he was going to say that to you, too.
All right, Amy, hit us with some AWA trivia. I'm going to suck even worse at this. I promise you that.
Oh, you might. So you might do okay. So as you said, who was the owner as well as the 10-time champion of the promotion? Was it Mad Dog Vachon, Fritz von Erich, Nick Bockwinkel, or Vern Gagne?
D.
Vern Gagne.
Vern Gagne is correct. He was, all of those actually were title holders. Vachon was a 5-time title holder. Bockwinkel was a 4, and Fritz von Erich even had it once before he had his own territory in Texas. Mm-hmm. Which AWA World Heavyweight Champion later went on to become better known as a WWF/WWE commentator? Was it Jesse the Body Ventura, Jerry the King Lawler, Vern Gagne, or Gene Kiniski?
What was the question?
What AWA World Heavyweight Champion later went on to become better known as a WWF/WWE commentator?
Okay.
Do you want the choices again?
Yeah, because I know who I want to pick, but I don't know if I got the letter right.
Jesse Ventura, Jerry the King Lawler, Vern Gagne.
Yeah, it's Jerry Lawler.
Gene Kiniski.
It was Jerry Lawler.
It is correct. Jerry Lawler was awarded the title.
That's a trick question, though, because Jesse Ventura was a commentator.
Exactly. And actually, when I went through and did it, that is who I picked. But then I was like, then I realized, no, he wasn't a world champion. Jesse the Body was never a world champion.
I'm trying to guess the year. Was it 1989, Amy?
1988.
Ooh, okay. 88.
Lawler should have dropped it to Kerry, though, so they would have had a father-son combination as the heavyweight champion of the AWA.
Lawler was awarded the title as part of a deal drawn up between Gagne and Lawler and Jerry Jarrett's Memphis promotion in 1988. He was stripped of the title when the deal fell through in 1989. So you were close. See,
And he didn't give the belt back.
And he did not give the belt back.
He kept the belt because they owed him. They owed him money.
Yep.
In 2005, I went and got my picture taken with Larry Zbyszko, and I borrowed the AWA title, the actual ring used belt from Dave Milliken. And I went to get my picture taken, and Zbyszko was looking at that belt. He goes, "Hey, is that the belt Lawler stole?" And I went, "Maybe." You're not going to take it, are you?
No, that's funny. True or false? The AWA World Heavyweight title never changed hands outside of North America. True or false?
That's false.
I'm going to say false.
Jumbo Tsuruta won it.
You both are correct. And you're right. It was, in fact, it changed hands twice in Tokyo. The first time, February 22nd, 1984, when Jumbo Tsuruta defeated Nick Bockwinkel. And the second was February 10th, 1990, when Saito defeated Larry Zbyszko. Does that sound right? Saito. Saito?
Saito.
Saito.
Mr. Saito.
Sorry, Mr. Saito.
Mr. Saito.
Larry
I didn't realize Mr. Saito had held the AWA belt. I mean, what year was that?
1990.
That's late. But
Yeah. And I don't know how long.
Saito was with Ken Patera at that McDonald's.
Yes, I do. I remember hearing that story. It doesn't say how long of a reign he had. It's just that he won it then. Now, at this point, I mean, I think the AWA shut its doors in 1991. So, I mean, it's very
I thought it
close.
didn't. I didn't know it went that long.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it folded in 1991, but it might have been January of 1991. I don't know.
Mama arigato, Mr. Saito.
Which holder of the AWA World Tag Team titles was killed in a car wreck in 1971? Was it Butcher Vachon, Red Bastien, Hercules Cortez, or Crusher Lisowski?
Oh, God.
Well, I know it wasn't Red Bastien because I met him in 2005.
Well, that's a good way to eliminate people.
I got a picture with him, so I know he's alive.
I have no idea, so I'm going to guess D.
I'm thinking that I'm going to go with him on D. I'm going to go with him on D. I think it was that Crusher dude.
It was actually Hercules Cortez. He had Cortez held the title with Red Bastien at the time of the accident. Bastien later took Crusher Lowowski, as his partner to defend the titles. So that's kind of sad. I don't know if that's ever happened before, where your tag team partner got killed in a car wreck. I mean, and you're a tag team champion, but Hercules Cortez, I think he was like 26. He was young. He was like 26, 27. And actually, Red Bastien and him, they were in the car wreck together. And
I think Vern still made him defend the title to drop the belt, and he might have made Cortez take the pin.
The dead one? What are you talking about?
He couldn't kick out.
Oh my goodness. So
that's working, brother.
Dave, it's too soon. All right.
That was too soon.
1971.
Too much kayfabe there. Come on. Only two masked wrestlers ever held the AWA World Heavyweight title. One was Dr. X. Who was the other? Was it the Assassin, Mr. M, Super Destroyer, or Mil Mascaris? Who was the other?
That's the first name that went through my head, but then when I heard those first few, I'm like,
man.
Do you need me to say them again?
No, yeah. I'm gonna guess Super Destroyer because I don't think they put it on Mascaris.
Can you say them again?
Yes. The Assassin, Mr. M, Super Destroyer,
Mascaras. Yeah.
or Mil Mascaras?
I'm gonna go with Dave. I agree with that opinion. I was thinking the same. I'm gonna go see.
Both of y'all are incorrect.
What?
They
It's
liked their
B.
they liked their mass wrestlers to
Wrestler.
have Mr. Letters. They liked X and M. So
Oh,
Mr.
shit.
M was Bill Miller, and he swapped the title with Vern Gagne in 1962. So at the very beginning of the AWA promotion, Mr. M fought Mr. G, Mr. Gagne. So
My dad's name was Bill Miller,
Really?
but he was not the AWA champion.
Are you sure?
I'm sure his name was Bill Miller.
No, I'm sure. Are you sure he wasn't the AW? He was masked. How would you know? It's a masked man.
Have you ever seen Mr. Q and your dad in the same room? No.
Mr. M. No,
Mr.
Mr.
M.
Q. Q. Oh, Lordy.
Are you sure? Yeah, I know his name was Bill Miller.
No. Anyway, an independent promotion based in Indiana, run by Dick Afflis, had a working relationship with the AWA for a long time. What was it called? Was it World Class Championship Wrestling, World Wrestling Association, Eastern/Extreme Championship Wrestling, or International Wrestling Association?
It was
D.
WWA.
It's either B or D. I'm gonna go D.
It
It
was
is
WWA.
WWA. Do you know who that is? Who it was run by? Dave?
The Sheik?
No, it was run by Dick Afflis, otherwise known as Dick the Bruiser.
Oh, yeah, I did know that. You got me with that name, though.
Yeah, that's what I say. Yeah, I like how they gave him his real name. But yes, that was Dick the
was over.
Bruiser. Yes, he was. And it was the World Wrestling Association. True or false? Hulk Hogan never wrestled for the AWA heavyweight title. True or false?
False.
Both of you all are correct.
He actually won it and they didn't recognize it.
Exactly. For some reason, he wrestled Nick Bockwinkel on April 24th, 1983 in St. Paul, Minnesota, and defeated him. For some reason, never fully explained, the AWA president, Stanley Blackburn, entered the ring and reversed the decision. Like I said, it was never really explained why. And then pretty soon, Hulk Hogan was off to WWF. In what city was the AWA headquarters based? Minnesota, New York City, San Francisco, or Detroit?
This feels like a trick question to me. Because you said a city and you mentioned 2 states. So I'm guessing that they can't be a state if it's a state.
I think you're thinking way too hard on this question.
I think it's Minnesota.
I mean, it is Minnesota, but Minnesota is not a city. But
Did I say Minnesota?
You did.
Yeah.
Oh, Minneapolis.
Minneapolis, yes, that's
My bad.
what I was saying. Okay, that's
Minneapolis. Let me just read this again because now I don't even remember what I said. In what city was the AWA headquarters based? Minneapolis,
we're
New York City, San Francisco, or Detroit? Okay, now I understand the confusion. No.
Minnesota.
Yeah, Minneapolis is our guess.
That would be correct. You all knew that. He did promote cards in San Francisco in the 1980s after Roy Shire's San Francisco promotion closed. I like that.
At the Cow Palace.
Yep. What team won the AWA World Tag Team Champion titles the most times? Would that be, whoops, sorry. Oh, where'd it go? I was doing so good.
Oh, here's the moment where she flips through her papers like
I know, here we go.
Now I gotta edit.
Sorry. I tried. I'm doing a lot better though. Than I did last time. So you've got tag team titles of Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel, Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell, Larry Henning and Harley Race, or Bruiser and Crusher. Who had the title the most times?
Man, that's a hard one.
God, that is.
If you need to hear it again, I'll tell you the names.
I'm gonna guess D, because I could have guessed at least two of those. I'm kind of stuck on. I'm gonna guess D.
I'm gonna say it was A.
Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel.
Yes.
I think it
All
might
right.
be. I think it might be Larry the Axe. And all right,
I want to go ahead and pick. I'm kind of thinking it might be Greg Gagne since that's Vern's kid, but and I know they had him a few times, but I want to say that Ray Stevens and Nick Bockwinkel used to tear it up.
Now, who are you picking, Justin? You said D.
Yeah.
But that's Bruiser and Crusher.
Yes.
That's who you're picking?
Yes.
All right, you are correct. It was Bruiser and Crusher. They actually had the titles on 5 different occasions. Now, Stevens and Bockwinkel had it 3. So, I mean, they weren't very far behind. Larry Henning and Harley Race had it also 3 different times. And depending on what you look at, Gagne and Brunzell either held it twice or 3 times. I'm not for sure what the discrepancy was, but they held it for almost 2 years at a time. So I don't know if there was like a small break, or I'm not sure what happened there. But the answer is Bruiser and Crusher. Okay, last question.
Greg held it for 2 years at a time.
Greg and Jim Brunzell, yes.
Yeah, probably because they just weren't running a lot of shows much in those early 90s years, which would have been.
No, that was in the 80s. That was heyday. They ran a lot of shows.
Oh,
it's just that they didn't flip the titles.
Yeah, their reign, Greg
They
Gagne.
lost to the Road Warriors.
Oh, yeah, because Greg would have been in Atlanta by then. Yeah.
Well, they won. They held it between 1976 and 1983. So that was their years that they were. But like I said,
did they lose it to the Road Warriors?
I feel like, yeah. Did they talk about that on the show? I feel like they talked about that even on the show.
Oh, I don't know.
But I don't know. I don't know who they lost it to. Sorry. Last question. Ric Flair made his hold on. True or false? Ric Flair made his professional debut in AWA. True or false?
Oh,
it's true.
We're the mark.
As we record this is the 8th. I'm going to say that it was December 6th, 1972, when he had his first match. So it's been 50 years and 2 days ago.
Well,
do you know who he had his first match against?
He said it. He just said it on his podcast.
I was going to say true, not just because he said that, but because I thought, well, he was trained there, so he probably had to start there. So
they talked about it in the episode, but Rick had been talking about it, that he just started 50 years ago, but he said the true anniversary was December. I want to say he said December 6th.
I just have 1972. I don't have the actual date, but he defeated Paul Pershman. Do you know who that Paul is? Pershman is
Playboy Buddy Rose.
That is right. That is who he defeated.
Who actually was Kevin Von Erich's first opponent.
Talk about some 6 degrees, right? We can do that for everybody. So hopefully all our listeners out there, you learned a little trivia about AWA if you were not familiar with that promotion.
That's fun. I love this trivia.
I do.
It is fun. I like that.
Thank you for doing that, Amy. It's always a blast. And yeah, that's a lot of fun. I always get beat by 1 or 2 points, but that's okay because Dave's old and he knows a lot more about that than I do. So
I was there.
Yeah. As Bulldog
I learned a lot about the AWA because I read the aftermags.
As Bulldog would say, I wasn't there. So anyways, let's talk about now, as I was saying earlier, this Tales of the Territories, if you haven't been watching, is on Vice. Or no, it's not. What's it
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, it is.
It's on
It's
Vice.
on Vice.
Okay. And some guy named Dwayne Johnson did it. I think he's an up-and-coming producer. And
I like his stuff so far.
and so anyways, yeah, The Rock's in charge of this. They've done what, 6 or 7, 8 episodes, it seems like at this point. And this AWA episode just came out a few weeks ago. I watched it. It was, basically each episode there's 4 or 5 people sitting around a table talking about old territory stories in which they were involved in or either heard about straight from the source, I would say.
Mhm.
And on this episode of Tales of the Territory, the AWA, it was DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, of course, Medusa, Greg Gagne, the previously mentioned Greg Gagne, Ken Patera, and the previously mentioned Jumping Jim Brunzell, his tag team partner that we just said. So, Dave, go ahead and lead us off with this.
Well, they went around the table at first and they pointed out that Vern Gagne was the owner of the AWA. Pittsburgh Jones.
I was gonna say, is that what you're gonna say?
I'm not pissing. I'm not pissing. I'm
All
putting,
right.
I'll be right. I'm putting my sweet potato in the oven. That's more important.
Sweet Potato Jones. All right.
Sweet
So
potatoes
Vern
are
Gagne.
good.
This ain't yam bag Jones, just yam oven Jones. Right?
All right. So they pointed out that Vern Gagne was a wrestler. I mean, a real legitimate wrestler. Was in the 1948 Olympics. Then they went around the table and Greg talked about how he got started and he was just, even though he got his position, he had to earn it, even though his dad was the owner. He worked as a ref and on the ring crew. They showed Jim Brunzell, and the thing that stuck out, I don't even know what Jim was saying. I just noticed that footage they showed of a drop kick, and he could get, that's why they called him Jumping Jim Brunzell, but his drop kick was fantastic. Then they showed DDP, and when they did, they cut back to DDP and the AWA as a manager and how he was dressed. And all I thought, he looked like great value Michael Hayes in the beginning. And that's not an insult either. I mean, it's just, man, Michael Hayes is fabulous.
Mhm.
And then when he met Vern, it stuck out that Vern said, "You're the biggest manager I've ever seen." Because you don't want your manager bigger than the talent. And you had DDP wearing those cowboy boots that made him even taller. And he's already an extremely tall man. And then you had Ken Patera, who was the world's strongest man. He was 1972 Olympics. So legitimately, Vern sponsored him.
Mhm.
Vern was a real friend to Olympians and legitimate wrestlers, legitimate athletes. And then from there, they moved into the training. Now, Greg talks a lot, and I don't know how much I believe of anything Greg says. His honesty is suspect at best.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to put it.
Well, I mean, I had an experience in St. Louis a few years ago where he came out of St. Louis and he was talking, he was bad-mouthing Ric Flair, saying that Rick was behaving badly in a bar, harassing women. Problem was, I was there. Rick was not harassing women, and and Greg Gagne is borderline creepy around women. So I know everything he said about Rick that night was a lie because I was there. Rick paid my bar tab.
I think he paid mine too last year at Top Guy, but I don't really remember. But I've been told he paid mine.
Get it here first on the Pondwater Dave show. Pondwater Dave telling Greg Gagne he a lie.
Yeah,
he a lie.
Yeah, Tony Schiavone got a shirt for Gagne. Anyway, they talked about the training, and we'd heard about the training, just crazy. They carry.
You have to put people on your shoulders and carry them up steps.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they were in a barn. I mean, they were in a barn, and the pigeon crap and and just the hard mat and the conditioning, and I mean, they just, but they wouldn't. The thing that got me is they talked about Ric Flair. That Ric Flair had enough of that, and he was out of there. And I'd like to know. I'd heard they didn't let him quit, but I'd never heard that Vern went to the house to get him and slapped him.
I feel like Rick has said that.
I know Rick said. I thought Rick said Greg came and got him.
Oh, well, now I'm sick. I don't remember.
So now
I feel like I remember.
Question next time that Rick takes questions, because I'd like to know. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Vern Gagne went and got him and slapped him.
Yeah, me neither. I definitely believe that a lot more than I think Greg. I think that probably, I feel like that's a believable story. I feel like that would be something that a Vern Gagne would do, a talent that he saw. Because, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the show, first off, I did not realize that was Medusa's first promotion. And so I was actually, I say surprised. I didn't realize that. And the same thing for DDP. I didn't realize that's where they kind of both of them first had started. And I liked how they kind of told those stories. And Medusa said that Vern believed in her. And, that was a very unusual, he was paying a woman wrestler to wrestle. And that was probably, this was in the early 80s. So, that was a very high risk move on his part, but he believed in her. And when I hear that, it makes me believe I could see him going to Ric Flair's house and saying, smacking him and saying, get back, let's go back and do this, because he saw something in Rick, like he saw something in Ken Patera and, some of the other athletes that he had come through. There is a huge group, like you said, the Road Warriors, Kurt Hennig, Rick Rude, Rick Martel, like Jumping Jim Brunzell. There's a huge plethora of wrestlers that came through that AWA territory. And Vern didn't just let anybody go out there, so I don't doubt that story probably happened. I could see him wanting to be more involved. I could see Vern going to get Rick, whether he hit him or not, I don't know, but I could see where he would be more involved in that than go send in Greg.
Well, he probably saw something in Rick.
Yes, definitely.
That made him worth the effort.
Exactly.
And what you said about Medusa, I've always said that Medusa was a generation too soon.
Mm-hmm.
Her problem was that she didn't have anybody to work with.
Right.
Nobody on her level. She would have fit in with the women's revolution recently.
Definitely.
She might have fit in the Knockout, the original Knockout TNA version, when the Knockout started putting a real spotlight on women's wrestling.
Sure, but definitely.
She was just a victim of not having anybody to work with, because there was
nobody.
She
didn't have Bull. What's Bull's last name?
Bull Nakano.
Nakano. She would have had nobody. Honestly,
well, she had
like
Sherry.
You said. Yes, but that's when they let Sherry wrestle. She became, in the WWF, she was more manager and more ballet. Luna, same thing.
Yeah.
They kind of, didn't allow that, or didn't have I don't know. They just weren't into that at that moment. And you're right. I think Medusa, and she was more than
she was more than the and girls on the card.
Definitely.
And but I remember she was Medusa Michelli. Uh-huh. She was from Milan, Italy. She was a model. She was Roll Tide. That was a good looking woman. 20-year-old me dug her a lot.
I like how Ken Patera's story, it was the ex-employee at McDonald's who threw
Fast
that
food
33
fury.
pounds.
Fast food fury.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if that's your story and you got to stick with it even after you've done your time, but, I thought that was funny.
Speaking of fast food, we had our Christmas party and we pretty much didn't really cook. I had a problem with the grill. So we had fast food. That's what made me think about this. Let me tell you what my kids did for me. I got this big old grab bag.
Mhm.
And I would reach in and all my presents I
Aw.
had to fill through to get them. And let me tell you about what these kids did for me. And I'm trying not to cry while I'm telling you. I got a watch. They bought me a Rolex.
Look
I
at
got
that.
a Rolex.
You got it on?
I don't have it on.
Rolex wearing. Look at it.
Then I went down a little deeper. And they got me a ring. A really nice little gold band ring with just a single stone in it. Classy looking. And then I dug down that bag a little bit further. And you know what I found?
What?
A big load of bullshit, just like Kim Patera fed us on this episode.
Hey, if you're going to plead not guilty, I mean, it's got to be the ex-employee who was mad too, right? I mean,
ex-employee threw a boulder through the window. I love how they all called BS on it, but
it wasn't Jim Brunzell, wasn't he like, I don't think I've heard it that way or something? He was trying to be very diplomatic. I thought
but Kim Patera has always told that story that way. He was on the old Ric Flair show and he told Rick the same thing. He will not admit that he did it.
I don't blame him. I mean, like you said, at this point, I don't know. And and how interesting about, he talked about, I guess he went to jail for 2 years and, I mean, how much money he lost and just, I mean, what kind of situation that put him in. I mean, that was I remember,
I remember when he got out and went to WWF, they did a whole thing about,
they
leaned into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that was interesting. Every one of them, I mean, obviously, except for Greg, ended up in the WWF/E in, somewhere in the 80s, and obviously the promotion was maybe flailing a little bit. Do you think it was injured at all by the fact that Vern did lean so heavily on Greg and wanted to put the belt on him? And I mean, from all that we've heard,
never put the belt. He never put the heavyweight belt on Greg.
No, the tag team, or just the fact that he put him in contention for anything. From what you hear, maybe he wasn't at the best.
Now, Greg was. I saw Greg wrestle. Greg was good hand in the ring. Greg was small. When I saw Greg in the ring with Bruiser Brody, I was like,
right.
I always thought of Greg as the Mike Von Erich of the Gagnes.
Mm-hmm.
He was the smaller of the. I mean, I put it together that his dad was the promoter.
Sure.
But I'm not going to take anything away from his ability. Greg was a hell of a wrestler. Probably a hell of an amateur wrestler. And to Vern's credit, he never put the heavyweight championship on him.
Right.
I think he put the America's championship on him when they came up with that.
But I mean, Greg was 6'2", though. I mean, he wasn't short, but he didn't have a big build.
No, he was
right. And
Greg,
I guess if you look at,
yeah, he was 6'2".
If you look at Vern Gagne, I mean, he was actually,
his dad was pretty tall, so you would think that Greg would be relatively tall.
And he also wasn't he drafted he was drafted to play football. Vern Gagne, was he not?
Oh,
I feel like,
Vern was. I don't know about.
Yeah, so he was drafted to play football for, was it the Green Bay Packers? I feel like I remember reading that. He was an Olympic champion. Definitely physique probably was important for for the things.
Vern was a man and a half.
Right, and like you're saying, Greg was definitely not
He was not as
He
big
was
as his
definitely
dad.
slender, maybe. Um, I didn't know. I mean, you just hear a lot about
If
that
they built
sometimes.
him at 200, they were lying. He couldn't have been more than 180. He couldn't have been more than 180.
He had arms about, Jake the Snake arms,
He was,
but probably not even that big.
yeah, he wasn't tall and lanky like Jake. He just was not as
Jake was
big as the other
definitely
wrestlers.
right. Never a
But
body person.
but go find some tag matches with him and Jim Brunzell.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he didn't embarrass himself in the ring. I'm not bagging on him and saying that his last name got him his position. I mean, he knew how to work.
Right.
But
I just wondered because you do hear that a lot. I mean, about Vern, and with Vern Gagne, having Greg Gagne in the picture, like you said, nepotism, I think is
well, he
sometimes
actually, if you want to talk
but,
nepotism, it was his son-in-law, Larry Zbyszko, who he did make the AWA champion, but he knew he could trust him.
Right. Yes, trust him. But I mean, I think, but Larry Zbyszko had a name way before, he got married to Vern Gagne's daughter.
Well, true. I mean,
like to
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I think that at the point when he put the title on Zbyszko, he'd already lost everybody. He knew he could trust his family.
Right.
And we've learned, if we haven't learned anything, that a booker is always going to go with who they can trust. And that's why Dusty always did a lot, booked himself a lot because he knew he could count on himself.
Exactly. No,
Flair probably,
you're right.
when Flair was booking, he probably did the same thing with him because you can count on him. You know who you can count on.
Exactly.
Well,
go ahead. Well, no, I was just going to say, that's something we can even ask our upcoming guest when he gets here. They had him on their podcast, Larry Zbyszko, and had some questions, and that was a really great interview. I mean, I don't know why Larry is look at me, Larry, like we're besties. Mr. Zbyszko does not do more interviews. Like, he was very engaging and answered all kinds of questions. And, I'm surprised he's not, I don't want to say that he's got a podcast, but you don't see him out more. Even at StarCast, I don't think he was there. Or, other wrestling conventions like that where you're signing autographs and stuff. Like, I don't necessarily see that, you see certain people out there all the time. I just didn't remember seeing him. But like I said, we can ask Mr. TJ about that, about his interview with Larry Zbyszko, because it was very good. I thought it was very good.
Well, to move it along, for those that didn't see it, Ken Patera said what happened was Ken Patera and Saito were drinking. They wanted something to eat. McDonald's closed on them. They knocked the windows out. Then the police came to get them, and they tried to whip the police's asses, and that's what put them in jail. Ken Patera tells it that there was an employee. He wanted to buy the cheeseburgers. They had them set out. They were filming a commercial an hour and a half after they closed. A kid walked by, said they're assholes, and the kid threw a rock through the window. That was his story. And it was not. Anyway, then they moved on. They talked about the chain gang. These two guys had a biker gimmick, and they went to a bar. Bikers invited them to the bar just to ambush them because they didn't like it. And one of them got away because he swam across into a river or creek, got away from them because they were shooting at him. And the other guy did get shot, and that was actually in the newspaper. And that guy never wrestled again. So the gimmick was too close. Then they had an airplane, and the airplane was called Suicide One. And Greg tells a disgusting story that we're not going to tell.
Could you imagine? I just don't even,
no. And that's got to be true. You can't make that up.
I don't know. I get their road stories and things that they, but man, that just seems like.
I can see Mad Dog Vachon. They said Mad Dog Vachon was nervous about meeting his girlfriend's family. So he was getting pills from everyone and drinking and drinking and drinking and drinking. And apparently it didn't go very well. And
did he open the airplane door at one point?
Yes. Yeah. So they were left, and he was at the airport waiting for them. And
Is that even physically possible? I guess on a little plane,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
sure.
you can open that.
But they couldn't close it
I've read
because they go down to the when it
Oh.
opens, it steps.
Once you open that thing, you can't close it up there.
And then they talked about how one of them, I can't remember which one, fell out, and they worked it. They didn't get in trouble. They didn't get in trouble.
Right,
oh no,
they
that
put
was
them
Eddie
back on the
Graham.
plane.
That was Eddie Graham. I got my episodes mixed up. But they put Mad Dog back on the plane and they strapped him in, wouldn't let him up.
It's a wonder that more of our heroes from the 70s and 80s are not dead for things like this, things they did on the road, traveling. And this was the story that Medusa told about. They're riding in the separate cars and Sherry Martel was throwing milkshakes at
throwing
them and like
milkshakes
getting
at
on their
them.
windshield. Like the mom and me, that is so dangerous. It's like, don't be doing that. It's just to
Nothing
entertain
surprises me.
themselves. Like, oh my God.
But they talked about the legacy of the AWA. And I mean, it was just a wrestler's territory.
Mm-hmm.
And Vince, I mean, you think about it. He took Hogan. I'm gonna let TJ in.
Okay.
By the way, we are welcoming TJ. Where's he at? From the Filter Free Podcast over there. Are you here, TJ?
I'm here.
Hi, TJ. Welcome.
Hi, TJ.
Good
Hi.
to see you.
Sorry, Zoom decided to download the updates right as I was trying to sign in.
No
Been there.
problem.
But anyway, Vince rated the AWA hard.
Yeah.
I mean, he paid Hogan to stay home and no show. I mean, that's what Greg says. And then that's where I highlighted suspect at best. But I've heard that before.
And he got Bobby Heenan and he got Mean
Took
Gene.
Heenan, Mean Gene,
I think
Jesse.
I think if you look at what I would look at the legacy of AWA would be just the amount of talent that came out of there. Like the amount of talent that became huge stars in WWE and other places. But they really just, I mean, even if you talk about the people that trained there, it's Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat. That's the legacy of AWA to me.
And you look at Vern had an issue with Hogan being in the Rocky movie.
Yeah.
Vince embraced it. And there's your two differences.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Vern had him. And Vince got him and knew what to do with him. And the rest was history.
That's right. So, TJ, as you can tell, we were talking about the Tales of the Territory, the AWA show. I don't know if you had a chance to watch it, but do you have any thoughts about the AWA territory?
Actually, to continue this Vern and Hulk Hogan conversation, because it's probably the biggest whoops in wrestling history. Not only the Rocky movie, but when you also throw in Vern was merchandising Hulk Hogan and not cutting him in to the he didn't want to cut him into the money, and then also he wanted a portion of his Japan deal as well. All of those things led to Hogan leaving, and also led to the Super Sunday show between Hogan and Bockwinkel, where Hogan won the title, but it was a dusty finish. Bockwinkel ends up retaining, and Minneapolis St. Paul started to turn on AWA after that. They really wanted Hogan. Vern wasn't going to give him to him. And then it wasn't shortly thereafter, you see Mean Gene, Hogan, the Killer Bees eventually left one at a time, but they did leave. And then you get, Rock and Roll Buck Zumhoff and those goofballs start filling in the slots. So, I mean, AWA, people could say all they want that Vern can keep up with the times, and there is something to that. It's true. But all they had to do is keep Hogan. That's all they had to do. And this, I think the 80s would have turned out much, much differently, because AWA already had the biggest territorial footprint as far as television was concerned. So, I mean, they had a one-up, but
they were on ESPN, right? So, I mean, they had at least a national spot to where.
Oh, they had syndication.
Yeah.
They started syndicating in Dallas, and they would cut promos for the Dallas market, even though they were never going to come here. But they would actually cut promos on the Dallas talent. I remember the Road Warriors on there one night. We're going to come down. We're going to get the Von Erichs. And if you put that claw on my head, I'm going to slap it off. But they were calling out world-class wrestlers on their localized promos and making you think they were coming to the area, and they never came.
Well, TJ, you got here right in time for our weekly show and tell segment, which we accidentally skipped last week. Well, no, we didn't.
No, we did. We're doing them last.
We did. We're doing them last now. So Dave's going to show us. He's got something over there. What you got, Dave?
Nice.
I've got a replica of the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. It's often referred to as the inmate belt.
Hey, there you go.
And, Amy,
Why is that?
Because wanted in prison.
It was commissioned to be made by the Colorado State Penitentiary.
Really?
Vern had the penitentiary make him a wrestling belt.
And why? Why did he? I mean, how does that even come to mind that you want to do that?
Well, they make license plates.
So what's the difference between license? If it's a nice belt. Oh, you got one too, TJ.
And he's actually got the Bockwinkel leather.
And it's Velcro.
Yes, mine is too.
Courtesy of Mike Kolb. That's how I got this one.
And
nice.
But the AWA belt was actually Velcro. It was the first one that was Velcro.
Mm-hmm.
And something Mike Kolb was good for.
I was going to say, because the inmates didn't know how to do buttons.
Well, they made the belt for him. So there
are no buttons on license plates, right? So I don't know.
So
no.
it was nicknamed the inmate belt.
I like it.
And when Stan Hansen was the champion, he left over a money dispute. So before he gave Vern the belt back, he threw it on the ground and he ran over it with his pickup truck. And I actually had the opportunity to have my picture taken with that belt when I met Nick Bockwinkel, because Nick Bockwinkel had it. It's a private collector in Japan has it now.
But if you're watching on the video, and we remind you that this drops every Monday at 6:05 a.m. By the way, that thing is colorful, Dave. That belt has some color put to it, don't it? A lot of blue, a lot of yellow, a lot of red.
It's a beautiful belt.
It is. I think that's why I like it, because it's got a lot of color in it. I like that.
It's my favorite one I've got, and it's heavy. It's very heavy.
I've got to think that in Crockett, well, I think Bill Watts wanted one bigger than that when he did the North American, and I've got to think the Crockett wanted one just as big when he ordered the Big Gold. And then I've got another one. We didn't talk about it in the episode. They mentioned a match where they talked about Bobby Heenan as a wrestler.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a match where he didn't like being called Weasel. So if he lost, they put him in the Weasel suit.
Yes, that was funny.
And he actually did that in the AWA before they did the Weasel suit in the World Wrestling Federation against the Ultimate Warrior. And I actually had the Bobby Heenan in the Weasel suit action figure.
I love it.
I keep it on the shelf with the Ultimate Warrior.
That was Vern's son that was in the Weasel suit match, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Greg and Jim Brunzell.
There you go.
Who did that wrestle?
Nick Bockwinkel and...
Was it Ray
Would
Stevens?
have been Ray Stevens, wouldn't it?
Might have been setting up the turn on Ray Stevens.
But
TJ, I just want to congratulate you, TJ. You are our first guest here on our 5th episode. You are the first guest that's ever been on the Pond Water Dave show. So you're making history today, my friend.
Well, thank you.
You're now an answer to a trivia question.
The Steiner brothers just jumped off my wall and
I saw that. The Steiners talked about that.
And he is a writer. He is a co-host of his own podcast. I mean, not just is he going to be our first guest, but he's very well acclaimed out there in the internet world. And so we're really happy to have you with us, because I know you've been doing a lot of good writing for PW Mania, and you get to meet some of those independent wrestling stars, those people that are just out there grinding, trying to make it. You get to meet them before they're famous, like you get to interview and ask them questions. And so that's kind of what we thought would be great to have you on, is who are you seeing out there that you've interviewed that you really can see, you know, in the next few years being in a big promotion, making big moves?
You know, it's really interesting because I think I've done 8 interviews now. I've got 3 more scheduled. We'll get into that in a bit. But the only 2 well-known veterans I've done is Bill DeMott, who was the very first one I ever did, and Al Snow, who I just did. Beyond that, I haven't really interviewed any young wrestlers that I don't think are going to be. I think there's something to all of them, and they're so different. That's what's nice about them. And as you're talking about wrestling with them, I think the most refreshing thing about them is because they're not old, grizzled veterans. They're not jaded. They have a very fresh perspective, and you know the world is at their fingertips, so to speak. But when I think back on the interviews I've done so far, there's 2 that stick out in my mind specifically, and that is I did a tag team with Hunter Knott and Rosario Grillo named TSF, and they've been on AEW a few times. They're very, very entertaining guys, and I've seen a few of their matches. They're very good. They wrestled the Acclaimed before anyone knew who they were on AEW Dark in like 2021, or when they were still no crowds. And the other one, she's actually wrestling in the CMLL tournament right now. Alex Gracia. She got a college degree, I think, from Baylor, if I remember correctly. And she has her own makeup line out. Like, this girl has it figured out. And that's another nice thing is Danny Limelight is in here too. He's an actor. He's been on a few Netflix series. Like, these guys are doing it the right way. They're not just, well, I'm gonna do all in on wrestling and I'm not gonna learn anything else. Right. These guys have other avenues to go to in case it doesn't work out. So it's been fun. Like, hearing their stories. Alex Gracia's was just fascinating. She's done so much in such a short amount of time. She's wrestled like 4 countries already, and she's like 24.
Goodness. So where can we go? I know it's at PW Mania. Do we just type in pwmania.com TJ Stevens, or like, how would we find these articles that you've written?
Yes, that is how you would do that. But there's so the website head, Andy London, weirdly enough, is also from England. Him and I are, because I have all the videos from these interviews. Because I do them on Zoom. So we're trying to figure out what we want to do with those. Okay. At some point. So they may be showing up on our Patreon page, the Filter for Free Network. So keep an eye out for that. But it's very helpful. Like I'll give the Al Snow interview as an example, because I asked he was at Ric Flair's last match, which so was Pondwater Dave. I don't know if you guys saw that. He was there.
He was? He did Pondwater, you never tell us anything.
He did something. I don't know what it was.
He did something there.
Now I've got to insert the video again.
But I was asking about the match because he was there, and he cut me off halfway through the question. And it wasn't out of anger or anything like that. It's just I said something, and he thought that was how I thought. So he just cut me off. So what I was telling him was I was asking about the match, and I asked him what his thoughts were. And I said, and I perhaps I worded it wrong because I pumped it up. But then I said, even though Flair's 73, and that's where my question stopped, because he jumped in. He said, so what? The rest of my thought was, so he's not going to have the fast-paced match we're used to, but, the psychology was off the chain in that match. But Al was great. Al might be the most fascinating guy I've talked to so far. He has so much.
He's a fellow
book is great.
Ohioan like me.
Yes. I mean, we won't hold that against him, but yeah.
Well, and then he's, helps run OVW. So, that's
he owns it.
Well,
he owns it now.
He's partners with a Kentucky sports conglomerate or whatever.
Yes.
Because Matt Jones is one of the, I don't know exactly how it all works, but he doesn't own it all by himself anymore. He owns it with a, like I said, sports entertainment group or whatever you want to call it. But his book is really good. And again, he's one of those people that you don't realize that he was out in the territories, and he'll tell you, 18 years old, riding around with the vets. And, you don't realize that with him. You don't realize that he has such a history behind him when he came in through the WWFE as, part of the New Rockers and Leaf, what was his?
Leaf Cassidy.
Leaf Cassidy, thank you. And then, even the whole head thing, you just don't realize he really is a phenomenal talent. And apparently he's a very good teacher, and he really does enjoy that. Like you said, up at OVW. Somebody that we did mention that we talked about in the AWA, and I told him that you all at FFP had done an interview, was with Larry Zbyszko. And so I really am surprised he doesn't do more. I really thought he was a great interview and answered questions, and I'm surprised he's not out more.
I'm going to tell you guys about this, because I am not going to lie. Minutes before we went on the air with that interview, I was scared to death.
Okay.
I didn't think it was going to go well, because every time I talked to Larry up to that point, he was kind of scatterbrained. He couldn't kind of stay focused, and he would just kind of run off after a while with the sentences. So I'm just sitting there with Dave and Timmy like, oh man, this is gonna be bad. And to Larry's credit, as soon as we started recording, it was 1998 Larry Zbyszko. He was fantastic.
Was.
Do you ever worry about Tim saying something to piss him off?
Yes.
That's in general though, right? Aren't you always worried when you're
Yes.
out with Tim and Dave that somebody's gonna...
Ever since Timmy tried to pick a fight with FTR at Top Guy Weekend last year.
Yeah, with the whole Bret Hart thing.
Yeah. Everyone would think Dave would be the issue. Dave is not. It's Timmy. But Larry,
that's why I asked, because I was like, just what's he going to ask this year?
So Timmy made it very, very clear when we booked Larry, he was like, I want to talk about the AWA. No, wait, I'm sorry. He wanted to do Bruno. He wanted to talk about Bruno. I wanted to do AWA because, like you guys were talking about before, I think, if you go after the Hogan era, so I would say 85 till the end is where, because 83, they were still riding high off of Hogan, and then they just slowly went down. But they went from Hogan to Rick Martel, Stan Hansen, Kurt Hennig.
Yeah.
And Zbyszko was there towards the end, and the whole Lawler debacle too. But Zbyszko was there because he was the son-in-law of Vern Gagne. Do I have that right, Dave?
Yes.
And Vern knew that Larry wasn't going to screw him over, and to Larry's credit, he was there till the end. But he was the AWA champion, and I wanted to know what it was like towards the end. But we started going over so many different things. I think the Bruno thing lasted like a half hour, because the whole lead up to that was just incredible. And we're talking about road stories of him almost getting stabbed and people chasing him out of buildings, and I could listen to those stories all day, no issue. We never got to talk about it, but I think we're going to try to have Larry on again soon. So we might have a Larry AWA episode specific, because unfortunately the WCW, like, I love me some WCW, but we've heard all of them already. There's not too many we haven't heard. So I want to do an AWA deep dive here with Larry pretty soon.
That would be really cool.
I'd be interested to hear that.
Definitely.
I thought he was missing from that AWA episode.
Yeah,
I thought that he could have.
Well, again, when you throw in just the closeness that Larry had to the AWA because he was in the family,
right?
You think they would have, but I don't know.
Well,
maybe he didn't want to do it.
Asked, they could have asked, and he didn't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
Or didn't. I don't know. But yeah, that was or they wanted to talk about, obviously, Ken Patera. You need to talk about the whole Boulder thing. Did Saito go to jail too? I need to ask that. They both went to jail for that. Okay. Mm-hmm. I figured, but I of course, Ken Patera was the one there. But yeah, like I said, that was quite the story. But you did talk to OVW. I can't think of his Jesse Goddess. Thank you. I did not realize he has been around as long as he had.
Mr. Spectacular.
Yes, yes. And he does stuff with OVW, and he was tag team partners with a Tony Gunn, who is out of Louisville, and I like him a lot. I will catch OVW. I don't go too many shows because it's a little bit further. It's about 4 hours here from me. But I did not realize he had been around as long. Did he share anything with you about his future, I guess?
So you have to ask that question. And when you ask that question, you don't mean to insult OVW, because I think what OVW is doing is incredible. And actually, most people don't know this. They actually have a national television deal. It's just one of those offshoot ones that no one really knows about. So,
and I think they're on Fight TV, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah, you can get it on Fight.
And but you have to ask. And he said, of course, he would listen to any deal from either company of the big two. But he likes what they're doing in OVW. And yeah, I mean, he debuted on the Big Brother in 2000. I just said the Big Brother. How old am I? He debuted.
You sound like Brad at the SummerSlam.
Yeah. Terrible. On season 10, they brought him. He was out pretty quick. I don't think he made it 4 days. So he was back on season 11. And he told me that's when his breakout, he felt personality-wise, came through. He was on that show for 45 days in season 11. And he also told me he's the most recurring member of Big Brother ever. I think he's been in like 7 different seasons.
What's his name?
Jesse Goddard.
I used to watch the hell out of that show, but I must have gave up by then. I don't remember that. Okay,
and he went from there to I think he went to OVW first, and then went to debut in TNA in 2007 or 8, I believe. And yeah, Goddard's is much in the same way as Al Snow. Most people don't understand Al Snow debuted in like 1984. We just didn't see him until 1995. But yeah, he's been around a long time. He's did a lot of really fun things in TNA with the Bromans, with Robbie E. And he's done so much. And he's also one of those guys, when you talk to him, you're like, how do more people not know about him? Why is he not bigger than he is? Because he's just got such a great personality. But yeah, he likes where he is. So I don't think he's in a hurry to go anywhere else right now.
Good deal. And so that interview already up at PW Mania?
Yes.
Okay.
That was weird because it's the only interview I've done where it went up the day after I did it.
Oh.
The rest of them should take a week.
Well, wonderful. So we will all need to get over there to PW Mania to read some of these articles, because I think that's one of the things that we really like on our show is finding those little gems and meeting people and talking to the indie stars or different indie promotions and people that are really out there working and wanting to make their dreams come true. So like I said, the
only difference between people that have national contracts and the indie wrestlers are the people with national contracts have gotten a chance.
Yes.
The talent levels in most cases are the same, or if not better.
Sure. Definitely.
Just because you work for one of the big two don't mean that your talent level is any different than what you can see at your local high school gym. Support indie wrestling, because that star just hadn't been seen by the right person yet.
Exactly. And what we can do in that little, and we're just doing our little part here, trying to spotlight some of those for, just like you said, Justin, you hadn't heard of him. So, that could be someone that you look up and, you may become his new biggest fan. You never know. So, that's one of the things that, I
was just going to say, yeah, definitely. I am going to do that. TJ, thank you for coming on here. We don't mean to cut you short, but our celebrity co-worker over there, he's got another shoot job he's got to go do tonight. And I do want to remind everybody, check out TJ and the Filter Free podcast. And TJ, where else? PW Mania, is that where else we're going to find those? Is that pwmania.com?
Yes.
Okay. So check out TJ over there. TJ, what else? Where can they find you on Twitter and all that good stuff?
On Twitter, I'm at TStevens91. That is also my Instagram handle. And of course, the show, you can find us at FF Podcast. on Twitter, and Filter Free Podcast, the whole damn thing, on Instagram. So we're going to be on TikTok soon, which should be embarrassing for everyone.
Yeah, I think y'all should rethink that, TJ. I really do. I've watched your live. Just saying. Once
TJ,
it's out there, it can't come back. So
for being our first guest ever, TJ, and we really
I'm such a huge fan of TJ. TJ is so good at broadcasting.
Yes.
That he'll expose how bad everybody else in the room is at broadcasting.
That's right.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, TJ, I was going to tell you, we asked Dollar Bill Dave to be on. You were our second pick, but he's on his 95th vacation of the year right now. So we had to bring you on instead, but
I can understand that. I would want Dave first too.
And he refused to keep his tongue in his mouth.
There's that, yeah.
And I will say, I am a FFP dummy head. I am a subscriber, and I enjoy. They have other different shows over there. They do Legends Rethink It, which I really enjoy. TJ has box score trivia coming up. I listen. I could never ever. Carlton Fisk is about the only thing I've ever learned from the guys about any kind of player.
I always enjoy the baseball talk over there on FFP for sure.
I just listen and hope to God I can use it one day in some trivia. I'll throw a name out and somebody will be surprised because of these guys. I try to listen, but I will not be participating. I will be listening to see. Actually, I'll be watching TJ win because I don't think anybody's going to beat you, TJ.
No chance.
I really, really don't. So
no chance in hell.
Yeah. So thank you so much for coming.
Try to listen over there to TJ on FFP Podcast, Filter Free Podcast, and try to listen to Pond Water Dave on every other Monday on Ad Free Shows, as the second edition of the After Mag Chats came out this week, and that was about the great Lou Albano, right?
Lou Albano and Freddie Blassie.
That's right. So
very good. It was very good, Dave.
Thank you.
I like it.
Yeah, check that out over there on Ad Free Shows as well. You can check us out here, the Pond Water Dave Show, on all your podcast forums. Anyone got anything before we get out of here?
Thank you all for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank you for coming on, TJ.
Yes, thank you.
And if you guys,
we'll have you back if you want to. If
we'd
you want
love
to come
to have
back,
you
we'd
back.
love to have you.
Anytime.
Come hang for the whole hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to get him on here a little longer next time. Like I said,
I don't know. He's been doing his Peloton. He may not have an hour to give us.
I see that. He's been losing weight, ain't he?
I'm trying.
Look at him. Well, it's not hard to be the sexiest man on that podcast of yours. About that. I just want to say before we get out of here, Hoo-day. What happened to them Chiefs on Sunday? And for Dave, for Amy, for TJ, my name is Justin Davis. Thank you again. And we will see you next week, Monday at 6:05 a.m. on the Pond Water Dave Show. Peace and love.
Bye-bye.
Good night.